What's up guys, it's Heat. I wanted to do a build guide video for my Animate Weapon Summoner I used in the Hardcore Talisman League. I did an animator build in the past, but it wasn't the primary focus. It was used in conjunction with a 5-specter build, and with the new introduction of new jewels, trees, and gems in 2.0, I wanted to revisit the build because it's such a unique experience and one of my favorite builds that I have played. I was hesitant in making a video for this particular build because I ripped at level 87, and I feel like I didn't flesh it out or play it to the extent that warrants a build. For example, the highest level map was tier 9. However, I'm comfortable in assessing the build's potential and thought I would share my experience for summoner build inspiration. One note is all the boss kills and gameplay you see in the video is the DPS output from using 4 links. The build uses zombies, flame sentinel specters, and animate weapons to produce a stunning amount of DPS as a summoner. It also has the luxury of using mind over matter for damage mitigation. It's important to understand how animate weapon works and what affects its usability and damage. The primary source of damage are the weapons, and unlike other skills, their damage is dictated by duration, item quantity, and rarity. Since damage is directly correlated with the quantity of weapons you have available in the instance at one time, duration is quite important. There is no limit to how many weapons you can possess at any one given time, but since they have a limited duration, increasing the skill's duration acts as a direct source of DPS output, because the longer you can maintain a larger quantity of weapons, the more damage you will be dealing over the time of an instance, for example, in a map zone. And it can also reduce the strain of animating every single weapon that drops. Item quantity mods that you would find on items such as the unique belt Parandus have a positive effect on your DPS because it increases the number of items dropped by enemies and therefore increasing the probability of more weapons dropping, essentially allowing you to increase your minion quantity more quickly and dependably. Because you cannot summon unidentified weapons, item rarity is actually a bad stat to have on your character. You would have to stop to pick up the weapon, ID it, drop it out of your inventory, and then animate it. This process will significantly slow you down and act as a DPS decrease. Aside from animate weapon, the build also utilizes 9 zombies and 2 flame sentinel specters as offensive and defensive mechanisms. A note on using flame sentinels. Pathing for an extra sentinel and using an entire 4 link is optional, and in fact, I was planning of speccing out and dropping the specters in the early level 90s in favor for a setup that procs elemental equilibrium, resulting in a further increase to damage. I chose to use specters because when you initially enter a map, there is a ramp up before you become effective due to the nature of how animate weapon works. Obviously, you need weapons to drop in the zone. The specters remove the strain of early instance mapping because they provide a significant source of damage and will help you clear enough until you can summon an adequate amount of weapons. The gameplay flow is fairly simple. Animate every weapon that you see, direct minions using your elemental weakness curse, cast flesh offering and Vol haste to increase your minion kill speed. That's basically it. The damage in this particular build is dictated by 2 auras, Wrath and Anger. They add significant elemental damage to the weapon's attacks. The damage of these auras are then further increased by aura effectiveness passives from the tree and from unique items that you have equipped. The chess piece Victario's Influence is not entirely build enabling because you can play without it, but is probably the best in the slot for this Animate Weapon Summoner. This is an extremely powerful unique. It provides a free link with a level 1 generosity, which is also utilized by Wrath and Anger, and which also gets increased damage scaling from increased effective aura mods and a +1 to the level of socketed aura gems. Lastly, the 20% reduced mana enables this build to use mind over matter as a defense mechanism. The end plan was to link a leveled Empower gem to Wrath and Anger in this chess piece and then roll Corruption on it in a 4 link in hopes of getting a +1 to gems. The other important unique in this build is Dying Breath. It provides a lot of synergies for the build, increasing the damage of all your minions directly and indirectly from auras and curse buffs. For most other items, life, mana, and resistances are prioritized. Mana regeneration is also a beneficial stat which helps with mana cost and to refill your mana pool if you take damage. One thing to note though is on my gear is I wasn't able to transition into ES based gear for my gloves, helmets, and boots. The end goal was to use high ES gear on these particular gear slots in order to add more effective health via ES, which also covers my life pool. Let's take a look at my links. I have Ray Spectre, Control Destruction, Spell Echo, and Fire Pin for my Flame Sentinels. I also have Increased Duration, Convocation, Flesh Offering, and Vol Haste on my gloves. On my boots I have Ray Zombie, Fortify, Minion Life, and Minion Damage. I wanted my zombies to be as tanky as possible in order for them to tank a lot of hits and to take most of the incoming damage. So that's why I went with Fortify and Minion Life. On my chest piece I have Anger, I have Wrath. I'm also leveling Elemental Weakness, and I'm leveling Arctic Armor. Ideally what you want on your chest is Empower and Enlighten with Anger and Wrath. This is the best way to maximize your DPS. In my Dying Breath I have my Animate Weapon setup, which right now is Animate Weapon, Melee Splash, Weapon Elemental Damage, Increased Duration. As a fifth link I would use Minion Damage because of the more multiplier. I'm also using Elemental Weakness and leveling a Bone Offering. So let's talk skill tree. The Scion is a solid character for this build. Alternatively, you can use the Witch if you have class preferences, but in terms of min-maxing, I feel like the Scion is the stronger choice. There isn't anything too out of the ordinary in terms of notables for the Summoner build. I mean, it picks up Lord of the Dead, Grave Intentions, Puppet Master, Death Attunement, all pretty basic stuff for Summoners. However, it does require potency of will and exceptional performance before you can fully utilize Animate Weapons effectively. So in terms of transitioning into full Summoner who uses Animate Weapons, I would advise against it until you have these notables. Note that the pathing to Death Attunement is optional and a placeholder for late game transition out of this option. For example, the notables, Influence, or even Leadership are very strong choices because of how damage scaling works with Wrath and Anger. Other notables like Righteous Decree are entirely optional. It just depends where you stand with your gear at the time that you're leveling. In terms of jewels, I think Conqueror's efficiency synergizes really well on all fronts with this build. And the rest of the jewels usually consist of minion damage or different utility mods for which I feel is necessary at the time, like reduced mana cost or dex or block chance, etc. I'll post the link to the skill tree in the description so you can take a look at your own discretion, but I hope the Summoner build stirred up some creative juices or even shed some light on different Summoner builds. Thanks for watching.